Welcome to Lesson 10-3, Modeling Addition and Subtraction of Mixed Numbers. Our learning goal will be to use models to add and subtract mixed numbers. Learning goals for this lesson will be to use models to show different ways of adding and subtracting mixed numbers. Models that we can use to represent fractions or mixed numbers can be fraction strips, fraction circles, or rectangles divided into equal parts. For our lesson today, I'll be using fraction strips, and you'll have these available to you in class as we work through this lesson. All right, we have some important information, so you should go ahead and take notes in your journal so that you have this available. When working with fraction strips to add and subtract fractions, sometimes we can have trouble knowing which fraction strip to use. If we're representing whole numbers with fraction strips, then we use those that say one whole. So if you look down below, the ones that are in red that say 1, those represent one whole. When working with a fraction, we use a fraction strip divided into the same number as our denominator. So if we look at the fraction 2 and 5/12, we'll see the two wholes are represented by the long red strips that each have a 1 on them. And then you'll see down below that I used a fraction strip that was broken up into 12ths, and it shows 5/12. So that's how we would represent 2 and 5/12 with fraction strips. Let's work an example together. Jackson has two boards he will use to make picture frames. The lengths of the boards are 1 and 11/12 feet and 2 and 5/12 feet. What is the total length of boards Jackson has to make picture frames? The first thing we need to think about when we're working a word problem is do we need to add or subtract? The key words here are total length of boards. So in this one, we have to choose the operation of addition to find the total length. So here's what that would look like if we were using our fraction strips. We model 2 and 5/12 by using two wholes and then 5/12, and that's shown right here. Then for our next fraction, 1 and 11/12, we have one whole represented by the red 1, and then we have 11/12 represented down below. We start by adding the fractions together, and we already have the same denominator, so we'll just add numerators, 5 and 11, which gives us 16/12. Now, as you've worked through previous lessons, an improper fraction we now need to change into a mixed number. So if we look down here at 16/12, we know that can be represented as 1 and 4/12. Because 12/12 is where we get the 1, and that leaves us with 4/12 left over. And then that's represented with the fraction strips below. Now we'll add the whole numbers, including the renamed fraction, which is the one we changed from an improper fraction to a mixed number. Now we have 4 wholes with 4/12 left over. So that's where we get 4 and 4/12. But we do need to always remember to simplify our fraction. Now, anytime we get the keyword simplify, that means reduce. And I can reduce 4 and 4/12 to 4 and 1/3 by dividing both the 4 as our numerator and the 12 as our denominator by 4. And that's where I get the 1/3. So the total lengths of boards that Jackson would need would be 4 and 1/3 feet. In order to make those picture frames. Now we're going to do some examples together. Here's our first practice problem. 2 and 1/3 plus 1 and 2/3. Now you may say, this is a really easy problem. This has a common denominator. I know how to work it. And you do. But for this, remember, our learning goal is to model addition and subtraction of fractions, and we're using the fraction strips. So at this time, you're going to want to get your fraction strips out that are available to you, and you're either going to want to lay those out on your paper or make a drawing of those to actually show the addition of fractions. So go ahead and pause, take a moment to work with your fraction strips, and then press play when you're ready to check that with me. All right, so let's work through this together. we have 2 and 1/3. Up at the top, you'll see that I represented the 2 wholes by 2 whole fraction bars. And then the 1/3 is 1/3 of one of these whole fraction bars. So 2 and 1/3 is represented above, and then below I've represented 1 and 2/3. Now we can add this together over here, but we can also do this by adding our fraction strips to the side. So if I go ahead and look at my thirds, I have 1/3 and 2/3, which is going to give me 3/3. And then I have 3 wholes. And I'm not finished yet because this is not in its simplest form. Anytime I have 3/3 or my numerator and denominator are the same, then that is equal to 1 whole. So my final answer is 4. And you can see this using the fraction strips, that if I put all of the 3 wholes together and then I put my 1/3 up here and my other 1/3 up here, that would give me another whole. Good job if you got that, and hopefully you see how fraction strips can help us model this addition problem. Let's go on to practice problem 2. For practice problem 2, we're going to look at a subtraction problem. 5 and 5/6 minus 3 and 1/6. Again, use your fraction strips to help you model the subtraction in this problem. Pause and press play when you're ready to check your answer with me. Okay, first of all, in subtraction, we're going to represent the larger number, which is 5 and 5/6. So I've done that with 5 whole fraction strips and then 5/6 of another whole fraction strip. Now with subtraction, we're going to be removing 3 and 1/6 from this. And I'm just going to do that by Xing them out today. So I'm going to X out 1, or you could just remove them if you're working with those. 2, 3 wholes, and then I'm going to get rid of or subtract 1/6. So now I have 2 wholes with 4/6 left over, and that's what I would get if I just did my traditional problem of subtraction. But again, I'm not finished because it's not in its simplest form. Now I would need to reduce. So I can do that by dividing both my numerator and denominator by 2. Because that's their common factor. And so then I would get 2 and 2/3 for my final answer. Okay, let's take a look at our next practice problem. And it's our practice word problem. Cammie's rain gauge showed 4 and 3/10 centimeters at the end of last month. At the end of this month, the rain gauge showed 6 and 9/10 centimeters. How many more centimeters of rain fell this month? Remember, when we have a word problem, we have to understand what operation we need to perform, addition or subtraction. So be sure to find those key words to help you know which problem you need to do. Go ahead, take a moment, work it out, and press play whenever you're ready to check your answer with mine. Okay, so the operation we needed to do was subtraction. 6 and 9/10 centimeters of rain, and we're subtracting 4 and 3/10 centimeters of rain to see how many more centimeters of rain there were from one month to the next. So with subtraction, we need to, with the larger fraction, represent that with our fraction strips. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 whole fraction strips, and then we have 9/10 of another fraction strip. And then we'll subtract or remove, in your case, if you're working with the actual fraction strip, I'm just going to mark them out. So I'm going to get rid of 4 whole, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I need to remove or subtract 3/10, 1, 2, 3, and that's going to leave me with 2 and 6/10. And if I do this subtraction problem, I get the same. Again, I am not finished because I must simplify. This is not in its lowest terms. And I can do that by dividing both my numerator and denominator by 2 again. So this would give me a final answer of 2 and 3/5, and I need to label centimeters of rain. Oh, my M disappeared. Good job if you got that. Now it's time for our challenge problem. Challenge problem today has two parts, part A and part B. For part A, write a mixed number for each model. So you'll write the mixed number for the first model and for the second model. Then the second part of this challenge problem is to find the sum of both models. So come to class tomorrow ready to check that. Let's finish up. Review your learning goals. Do you have the learning goals written in your journal? Do you have the practice problems written in your journal? And do you have the challenge problem written in your journal? You now completed lesson 10-3. Enjoy your evening, and we'll see you at school tomorrow.